Hey there, and welcome. Today we're going to unpack one of life's most fundamental and, honestly, most amazing stories: reproduction. It's the process that connects every single living thing on this planet, from a tiny cell all the way to you and me. So let's just dive right in. But first, I've got a little riddle for you to kick things off. What's the one biological process that is absolutely essential for life to keep going, but isn't actually necessary for you as an individual to survive? Go on, give it a second's thought. You got it. It's reproduction. You see, it's the ultimate long game. While your heart has to beat for you to live right now, reproduction is all about making sure your species lives on. So the bottom line is this: it's all about the survival of the species, not the individual. Okay, so to really understand how this all works, we've got to zoom in, like way in, to the microscopic level. We need to look at the very engine of life, and the one thing that makes all of evolution possible: variation. See, at the heart of every living thing, you'll find DNA. Just think of it as the ultimate instruction manual, the blueprint that lays out everything from an amoeba's shape to the color of your eyes. And for life to continue, this blueprint has to get copied. But here's the twist, and this is where it gets really, really interesting. That copying process, it's never 100% perfect. And that's not a bug, it's a feature. In fact, it's the whole point. These tiny little copying errors create what we call variation, all the small differences between individuals. So these aren't flaws, not at all. They're more like sparks of potential. It's this incredible example of how imperfection is actually the key to survival. So why is this such a big deal? Well, because variation is the raw material for evolution itself. It gives a species a whole toolbox of different traits. So if the environment changes, let's say it gets colder, or a new predator shows up, some individuals will probably have the right tools to survive. It's basically life's ultimate insurance policy. Now, life has come up with two major strategies for passing on its DNA. Let's start with the first one, which you could call the efficiency model, making copies with just one parent. So how in the world does that work? How does one organism manage to create a whole new generation completely on its own? Well, this process is known as asexual reproduction, and it's a pretty straightforward strategy. You have a single parent, and it produces offspring that are basically clones. There's no mixing of those special reproductive cells we call gametes. The result? It's an incredibly fast and efficient way to reproduce, but it has one big trade-off. You get very little of that all-important variation we just talked about. And, organisms have gotten super creative with this. An amoeba can just split itself in two. That's called fission. A hydra can literally grow a mini-me on its side that just pops off. We call that budding. And something like bread mold, it uses spore formation, creating these tiny, super tough packages that can survive almost anything before they start to grow. But what if you need more variation? What if you want to prepare your species for a future you can't predict? Well, for that, life came up with the innovation model, sexual reproduction. Let's just put them side by side for a second. Asexual reproduction, you've got one parent, it's fast, and the offspring are pretty much identical. Sexual reproduction, on the other hand, involves two parents. Yeah, it's a slower, more complicated process, but the payoff is enormous. You get genetically unique offspring with a ton of variation. Here's a great way to think about it. Asexual reproduction is like using a photocopier to make the same page over and over again. But sexual reproduction, it's like taking two different books, tearing out all the pages, and shuffling them together to create a completely new story. It just creates endless new possibilities. So, to see how this innovation model really works in practice, let's check out one of the most beautiful examples on the entire planet: the reproduction of flowering plants. It's really a three-step journey. First, you've got pollination. That's where pollen, which carries the male genetic info, travels from one flower to another, usually with a little help from the wind or insects. Second, fertilization, where that genetic info fuses with the female gamete inside a part of the flower called the ovule, and that moment triggers a massive transformation. And this is where the magic happens. That fertilized ovule develops into a seed, and inside that seed is the embryo for a brand new plant. At the same time, the ovary that surrounds it starts to swell and ripen, and it becomes the fruit. So really, the next time you eat an apple, just remember you're looking at the end result of this incredible journey. From plants to people, the basic principles of sexual reproduction are pretty much the same. So let's bring this story all the way home and take a look at our own reproductive journey. For us humans, this story really kicks off with puberty. You can think of it as the biological starting line. It's that period of life when our bodies go through this profound change to become capable of reproduction. And this means a whole bunch of changes are happening. Some are unique to boys, like their voice getting deeper and the start of sperm production. Others are unique to girls, like breast development and the beginning of menstruation. And then there are changes that are common to both, like new hair growth and, yes, that oily skin and pimples we all remember. So let's talk about the key locations for all this. In males, sperm are produced in the testes. In females, eggs are produced in the ovaries. But that critical moment of fertilization, where a sperm cell meets an egg cell, that usually happens in a very specific place, the fallopian tube. And from that one single fertilized cell, an incredible 9-month journey begins. An embryo develops into a fetus, all while being nourished and protected inside the uterus by this amazing organ called the placenta, which acts as the lifeline between the mother and the developing baby. And this brings us to a really vital point. Understanding this whole process is the foundation of what we call reproductive health. It's about knowing our own bodies, it's about preventing the spread of diseases, it's about planning families responsibly and making sure that both mothers and children are healthy. Because ultimately, a society's health is deeply tied to its reproductive health. So we end right back where we started. Life's greatest trick, its absolute key to survival, is variation. The story of reproduction is the story of how that variation gets created and passed on, generation after generation. Which leaves us with one final thought. Knowing all this, how can we make sure that the choices we make support not just our own individual health, but the health and the collective future of our entire species?